making biochar for the garden. That is probably too small of a can, but the idea is fill this with smaller twigs, nothing bigger than 1-inch diameter. And do we got holes in the bottom of that? Let's take a look. Yep, we got 5 1-inch or 3/4 inch holes in the bottom of that guy. So once you fill it up with your small twigs or whatever, put a cover on it. Then you got your 55-gallon drum. Ideally, you got a 30-gallon for the middle, and then you'll have less wood than I do when I do this. I've done it 3 times with these 2 jugs, and every one of those times, no matter what, I've had way too much smoke coming out of it. So I did some research, and it says crack the lid, which you're going to see in a minute here, and give it some more secondary air, and that should cut down the smoke. So this is your secondary air coming in here. Primary is coming in the bottom, and it's going to burn all the wood in between these 2 jugs here. What I've been using to burn in between is these pallets. I cut them up, throw away the screws. They end up like that, and then I just wedge that stuff in between these 2 barrels here. So our biochar is going to end up in here, and you lose about 2/3 of it. It was packed all the way within a couple inches of the top. That's only going to give me, you know, 1/3 of that 25-gallon jug or whatever it is when I'm done. So I'm going to start packing this wood in between there. And as far as your holes, you know, I just did what I saw on the internet. I got these 3/4 inch holes all the way around, and then 2 bigger ones like that. And then here's my holes on top. I'm going to fill this up. Well, here's our stack that goes on top. So what I'm assuming is it's going to burn clean for a few minutes, and then it's going to get real smoky. And then what I'll do is crack that lid off the top just a hair with a stick or something, and see if that solves the smoke problem. We got all our wood in there. I'll take this out in the driveway now and torch this on top, get it going, put the cover on it, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, I just got her lit. She's burning pretty clean right now. But the last 3 times, that thing starts smoking so bad. That's how it should be the whole time. Just burning clean like that with no smoke. If you're doing it right. Obviously, I didn't do it right the first 3 times. Let's see how this goes. Maybe I had my holes plugged up with wood or something. These primary air holes on top. Or is that the secondary? Primary in the bottom, secondary on top, I think. But if everything's right, you should have no smoke. Just a shadow of the heat coming out of there. Beautiful day. I thought there was no wind, which is why I decided to do it today. And now all of a sudden the wind's coming up out of the south. Here comes the smoke. A little bit of smoke. I think it's going to get nasty here. Blowing right over the neighbors, of course. getting a little black now, so I am gonna get another shovel and try and tweak that top off a little. I think that definitely cut down on the smoke. For sure, it cut down on the smoke. But now we got fire coming out the top. At least it's not smoky like it was. Oh yeah, cleaned it right up, just giving it some more air. So maybe I'll make those holes bigger on the top of the barrel. Turn them into 2-inch holes. And I'll bet you I can leave that top down. Way, way better. But that should be perfectly clean smoke coming out of there. Bats will probably be showing up here soon. I bet you there might even be some in there. It's a little chilly for them though. Yeah, this is way better than the first 3 times I did it, just cracking that top. My little support that was holding the lid up fell down, and now we're starting to get a lot more smoke, so clearly that's what it needed before. So I'm going to prop that up again. Cleaned it right up, perfectly clean, no smoke coming out the stack now. So those holes in the top of your can, I would say make probably 8 2-inch holes, and that'll give you about as much air as I'm letting in on the top right there with that thing cracked open, and then that'll solve the smoke issue. Okay, we're about 20 minutes into the burn, I'm guessing. I didn't keep track, but here's that black smoke coming. Even with the lid cracked, so I don't know what's going on. A lot better than 3 previous ones though. Here we are 5 or 10 minutes later, and she's burning clean again for the most part. I wonder if I could drop that lid down. I'll give it another 15 minutes and I'll try and drop the lid. Alright, here we are 40 minutes later. I took the secondary air thing out of there and dropped the lid down. She's burning perfectly clean now, but there was certainly, I mean, that's about it. On the first 3 burns, I had about a half hour really, really heavy black smoke. This, getting that secondary air increased helped quite a bit. Now that we're through, the first 40 minutes, she's burning perfectly clean. Almost. And you just let that burn out, let it cool down, and we'll check the biochar probably tomorrow morning. At this point, I ended up finding some 30-gallon barrels, so I went and got down, cleaned one up, drilled my 5 holes in the bottom, and I believe that's probably why I had so much smoke. When you got all that wood packed between the little 17-gallon barrel and the 55, I think that creates too much. There's just too much wood burning in between the two barrels. So if you get that, I think you need to hold out for a 30-gallon barrel if you're going to try and do this setup. Then you got to make sure you pack the wood really tight between the two barrels. I don't think I had it packed quite tight enough. And then on top of that, I drilled those 2-inch holes in there in the 55, which I don't think you should do. I think you should prop the lid up more than try and make the holes bigger until the smoke, if you do have smoke, prop that lid up, and then when it stops smoking, drop the lid down. But stick with smaller secondary air holes and prop it up. So we'll continue on what happened here when I did my burns with the 30 and the 55. Struck gold today. Found 3 30-gallon drums. Problem is they were filled with naphtha, which is highly flammable. So I'll probably cut these open with a snips on top if my snips will work, and then make some covers for them. But yeah, if you can find these, I paid 30 bucks a piece for these, but they're hard to come by. I drove an hour and 20 minutes one way. So start looking. There's our 3 size cans, you know, your typical cans. The 55 you can find everywhere. The 30 is really hard to find. So I ended up getting a 17-gallon. Here's our dimensions. Our 55 is 22.5 by 34.5. That little guy is 14 by 26.5, 17 gallons. You do not want to use that. I'm assuming that's why I was getting so much smoke from my burn. These things shouldn't give off any smoke at all when you're doing this. But that 19 by 29, that's the dimensions of your 30-gallon right here, which only leaves about 1.5 inches all the way around the 55 for your burn wood. And then your product goes sealed up in the middle can, I think. And then I just drilled these bigger holes to give myself some more secondary air, which I probably won't need now, I'm guessing. Hopefully that's not too much air for the 30-gallon. Probably needed for the little one to cut down on the smoke that comes, but these things should burn perfectly clean. So that's the 3 cans. Try and find a 30. I guess we'll find out if that solves my smoke issue, if it's something else, but we'll see what happens. Now I gotta cut that open without blowing up. Had naphtha in it. I'm gonna go work on that. Dump that 17 gallons into the 30 and find 15 more gallons of twigs and do another burn and see what happens. Got the 30 filled up with a mixture of pallet wood, twigs, and pine cones. Be pretty cool to see those come out. So I'm gonna put the top on the 30, pack as much of this pallet wood as I can in there. It'd be nice to have longer sticks that were like 3/4 by 3/4, and you could fit a lot more in there, because I'm sure I got a lot of air down there. We'll see how it goes. I made this cover out of a stainless steel door off a Maytag furnace. It should last through all 3 of the barrels I picked up the other day when they fail. We'll have a cover. See how this goes here. I already don't like what I'm seeing there. The air holes are blocked by a piece of wood. Heat the torch on this, fire it up. Most of our other air holes look pretty good. Getting a clean burn here. Looks like it's gonna melt my pipe right off though. Started out a little smoky at the beginning. Typically a half hour in, when I had that little 17-gallon jug in there, I was getting that black cloud of smoke. We'll see what happens. We're getting pretty close to a half hour in here. This robin just flew up about 20 feet from me and started screaming at me. Just saw the bats for the first time this year, swooping in around here. I don't think there's too much to eat out here for them though. Once I got my biochar, I put about 15 gallons of pond water in there to inoculate it, get the microbe population growing in the biochar. Okay, I put 15 gallons of pond water in here, and it's been sitting for a day now, maybe. And I just keep pushing it down in there. We are inoculating the biochar with the microbes from the pond water, and over the next couple days, yesterday it was floating all the way up to the top, and as it all soaks into the biochar, it'll eventually sink to the bottom. It's probably half of it already sunk to the bottom. Lined up like a parking garage. Still pretty cold here in Minnesota on April 6th, 2025. Gonna let the chickens out today. Probably going to be 50 degrees today. Anyway, we'll let this soak. Been soaking in the pond water for about a week. Most of it had sunk by now. Just draining off most of the liquid. And then I'm going to go dump it in a bucket and add topsoil till it's dry enough to split up properly without being mud. And then I'll distribute it through my 3 beds. Still quite a bit of water in there. I've watched videos where guys were crushing it up. I mean, I don't know what's right. Leave it in big chunks or crush it up. But if you do crush it up, make sure you do it when it's wet, because that dust that comes off of there, when you crush it dry, you better have a mask on. So I'll probably chop up this with a shovel here a little bit. I don't know if I can get any more of that water to drain out of there. But I got a pile of compost over here. I'm going to just add that until it dries up once I get most of the water out of it. And then I can put it in 5-gallon buckets and distribute it properly to the garden. Alright, she's mostly drained here. There it is, finished product. Didn't put much compost in there, but looks like I got about 10 gallons maybe.